All right, let's just jump right into it. Welcome to this explainer on the brutal truths about life I learned too late. Today, we're unpacking 40 years of hard-earned wisdom from Wise Joe. And let me tell you, this is going to absolutely shatter some of those comfortable illusions you've been living by. We're going to dig into those deeply ingrained habits and societal scripts that are, frankly, quietly sabotaging your peace. But more importantly, we're going to map out exactly how to break free from them. So let's get started.
Okay, I want you to think about a grudge you're holding right now. Just picture it. We're starting with a pretty stark wake-up call here. We all kind of participate in this massive lie about success and happiness, don't we? We hold on to our past pain like it's some limited edition collectible. Wise Joe points out a really dark but true concept. A lot of us are literally walking around carrying the corpse of the person we thought we'd become. Or worse, we treat our past traumas like a designer handbag. You know the type, showing it off to everyone to prove just how deeply we feel, secretly waiting for some imaginary medal for our suffering. But here's the brutal reality. Nobody is coming with a medal.
And that brings us to how we look at forgiveness. On one hand, you have what feels like toxic acceptance, saying what they did was okay. But on the other hand, you have severing the tie entirely, putting down the knife, evicting them from your head. Because holding on to anger, it's literally like drinking poison every single day and waiting for the other person to die. That person who hurt you a decade ago, I guarantee you, they aren't thinking about you. They're probably watching Netflix right now, just living their life. Meanwhile, you're stuck pressing replay on a song you absolutely hate. Forgiveness doesn't mean saying what they did was fine. It doesn't even mean reconciling. It simply means you're finally kicking them out of your internal dialogue, so you can use your hands for something other than carrying around all that old pain.
As Wise Joe brilliantly puts it, pain has a shelf life. The problem is we keep it refrigerated. So seriously, ask yourself, why are you watering dead plants? You've got to let your past pain decompose into fertilizer for whatever is actually meant to grow next. You know, you're not healing because you're too busy having imaginary arguments with ghosts in the shower. Just let it rot. When you stop refrigerating your pain, you finally actually make room for real growth.
All right, moving on to our next phase. Guard your energy currency and protect your most vital resource from the vampires. Because honestly, letting go of the past is really only half the battle. We still have to survive the present, right?
Now, you might think you're just exhausted from working hard all the time, but actually, you're tired because you're giving your absolute best energy to people who give you their worst. Forget money, forget time. Energy is literally the only currency that actually matters. And these energy vampires, they don't announce themselves wearing capes and fangs. No, they're the coworker who hijacks your morning coffee to vent for 20 solid minutes, or that friend who only ever calls when they need something. And look, they aren't necessarily bad people. They're just empty. And empty people naturally pull from full cups.
When you break down the brutal math of your day, it's pretty wild. You only get this tiny 15% sliver, maybe 3 to 4 hours of real, focused, creative energy. The entire rest of your day, that's just maintenance mode. So when you give from an empty cup just to appease other people, you really just end up making 2 people tired and building a ton of resentment. You absolutely have to be ruthless about who gets those precious few hours.
And because we have so little of that prime energy, we almost always fill it with the wrong things. We treat the word busy like it's some sort of badge of honor, instead of recognizing it for what it actually is, a symptom of poor prioritization. Honestly, being busy is kind of just a socially acceptable form of laziness. It's so easy to just say yes to everything and let chaos completely dictate your schedule. Being intentional, though, that's the hard work. That requires drawing boundaries, actually saying no, and actively choosing what moves you forward, instead of just, spinning your wheels in place.
Which leads to this gem from Wise Joe. Rest isn't laziness, it's intelligence, and you're not that important. Ouch, right? But it's true. You've got to schedule rest like it's a sacred meeting, and accept the somewhat humbling, and frankly hilarious truth that you just aren't that important. I mean, even absolute legends like Steve Jobs or Kobe Bryant passed away and the world just kept right on spinning without them. There's a real arrogance in martyrdom, in believing you're the only one holding the whole operation together. Because tired people make terrible decisions. They stay in bad situations. They burn bridges. Rest is not a reward for finishing the work. Because let's face it, the work is never done. Rest is a required part of the work itself.
So let's dive into our third phase. Shatter the success illusion. We're deconstructing those false narratives about control. Because once we actually get our energy back, we have this funny habit of pointing it in the wrong direction entirely.
We all kind of think that hitting 6 figures or finally landing that big promotion is going to magically fix our internal issues. But the truth?
Success is actually just a magnifying glass. It makes your existing problems absolutely impossible to ignore. That's the success illusion. This trap of thinking a milestone will finally make you feel complete. Think about the last big goal you hit. It probably just felt like an ordinary Tuesday once you got there, right? If you're deeply insecure when you're broke, I promise you'll be deeply insecure when you're rich. You'll just be wearing nicer clothes while you worry. And a huge part of this illusion is our expectations. They're essentially termites. They don't just blow up your house overnight. Instead, they sit there quietly, just chewing on the foundation until your seemingly perfect life collapses into a giant pile of resentment. Think about it. Society and movies install these massive expectations in our heads, and they literally murder our joy by making genuinely good things feel like failures. Almost all of your suffering in life exists right there, in the gap between what actually is and what you expected it to be.
Nobody's coming to save you. And that's actually good news. The brutal truth here is that control is just a beautiful lie. There is no cinematic turning point. Nobody is coming to fix it for you. We obsess over creating these rigid 5-year plans because, frankly, accepting that we are mostly powerless over outcomes is terrifying. You have to save yourself right in the middle of the mess with totally incomplete information. But hey, the good news is your eyes will eventually adjust to the dark. You don't need to see the entire staircase. You literally just need to see the very next step. Which brings us to our final phase. Embrace the quiet reality, finding peace in the absence of noise. As we start shedding all those illusions of success and control, let's see what happens when the societal noise finally, truly stops and we step into who we actually are.
We often think the massive, dramatic moments define us. The wedding, the big move, the crazy career pivot. They don't. It's the compounding of choices. Day one feels completely insignificant, like just choosing to read a book instead of doom scrolling on your phone. But fast forward to year 5 or year 10, it's those 1,000 unremarkable, tiny choices repeating in the background that build your actual, completely different life. It's choosing to have that uncomfortable conversation instead of avoiding it. Sure, these feel like drops in the ocean at the time, but compounded over a decade, they are the ocean.
Now, as you build this authentic life, your relationship with the external world is going to shift. And we often confuse loneliness with solitude. Loneliness is sitting in a crowded room performing a fake version of yourself for people who don't actually see the real you. Solitude, that's the exact opposite. It's finally being able to breathe. It's being alone, sitting still long enough to stop hearing society's voice and finally start hearing your own. You'll learn pretty quickly that people change in silence, and that drifting apart from certain friends isn't a betrayal at all. It's really just an invitation to find true connection with yourself.
As Wise Joe points out, the reality of getting quieter means having fewer friends, but the ones you do have actually know you. It means fewer commitments, but the ones you keep actually matter. And fewer words, but they actually mean something. Life gets quieter not because it's emptier, but because you finally gain absolute clarity on what's important. You aren't losing out when your circle shrinks or your calendar clears up. This isn't a loss, it's a refinement. You stop justifying your boundaries, and you realize that keeping people around just out of shared history or guilt, it just makes everybody miserable.
Which leads to this absolutely crucial takeaway. Fake harmony isn't peace, it's just delayed conflict. Real peace comes from alignment. Peace isn't loud, you guys. It's simply the absence of needing to prove anything to anyone. It arrives when your insides finally, truly match your outsides. When you say what you mean and actually do what you value, you unlock this incredible quiet certainty. You no longer have to wake up and wear a convincing mask that exhausts you every single day.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a rather provocative question to chew on. When the noise finally stops, who are you in the quiet? Seriously, think about it. Are you ready to put down the corpse of your past expectations, guard your energy, and meet the real version of yourself that's just waiting in the silence? Keep walking. The person you're becoming is already proud of you.